We'll be dealing today with Siman Kuf Samach Beis, which is the next Siman that was on the schedule, which is essentially a hemshech to the previous Siman. Previous Siman dealt with the Chiyuvim of Bnei HaChatzer one to another. This Siman deals with the Chiyuvim of Bnei מבוי one to another. We all know, or most of us who were here last year in the Ivroven, the difference between the מבוי and the Chatzer. A Chatzer is a courtyard where there's more private use. A מבוי is a collection of Chatzeres. That means you have a somewhat of a mini street, and from there you have a bunch of Chatzeres opening up into it. Just as a side note, we mentioned last year that the Shit of the Tzemach Tzedek, that if you have a house with a couple of units inside of it, that in itself is considered a Chatzer. So therefore, if you have two houses, each one has units and it has a joint courtyard, that might be considered a מבוי. The Shulchan Aruch begins with the din of koifin, the kfiya to participate. That would be another מבוי, yeah. If you have two buildings and they're open to each one in itself is a chatzer. The lobby is not a chatzer. If you have an open area that you could come in from a Rishus Harabim or from another place, that becomes a מבוי. The Shulchan Aruch begins with the halachas of koifin, that there's a kfiya to participate in the construction costs of a Eruv for a מבוי. Now, just as a side note, a reminder, we discussed last year about the whole Indian, if you could be koif for somebody to participate in the Eruv, in the food. That's something different than what we're discussing over here. This is a financial argument. That is a argument whether you could be koif for somebody to be part of the Eruv. Over here, it's whether you could be koif for somebody to be financially participant in the Eruv. Not in the Eruv, in the Tikun HaMevoyos. So Shulchan Aruch says that Bnei HaMevoi could be koif for each other to put a lechi and a koira, so that way the מבוי could be, the Smeh says, that way the מבוי could be used for carrying. The מבוי says also if you need a Tzuras HaPesach, you could be koif for the same kfi you could do for lechi and מבוי. If for lechi and koira, you could also be koif for Tzuras HaPesach. But you cannot be koife dlosos. You cannot be koife them to put dlosos on the מבוי. Why? Because each person, one person could even say, I'm not interested in having dlosos to the מבוי, because at that point I'm coming carrying all my boxes on my, and I want to be able to walk straight home and not have to come to the מבוי, put down the boxes, and enter the מבוי and continue walking and pick them up again and continue walking to my house. Yeah, and the Smeh says over there, it's whether it's because the mashkiv is going to bother him or the doors are going to bother him. He's going to have to put the stuff down before entering the doors and going into it. Now, you ask me, why is this so relevant to it? You're soon going to see this has nafkaminas for other dinim in relationships between neighbors, for example, garages. We're going to get to it soon. The Prisha says this din only appears in the מבוי, it doesn't appear in the Chatzer. Why? Because a Chatzer is not the regular. Usually, before you enter a Chatzer, you anyways take your boxes. You don't waltz into a Chatzer with your donkey car carrying all the stuff on your shoulder, and therefore, by a Chatzer, you can't be ma'akev from putting a door. The whole discussion in the previous Siman is about putting a door with a lock by a Chatzer. And if you don't say over there, somebody's going to come and say, hey, I'm not able to carry with my boxes through the door into the Chatzer. The Aruch HaShulchan over here points out what we already know from the previous Siman, that the minority could force the majority to do it. And now there is an interesting Mata Shimoin over here in the name of the Rameh. He points out that in this din of koifin bnei מבוי one to another to make a lechi and a koira, it only applies in a case of somebody who's living in the מבוי. But somebody who does not live in the מבוי, and it's mashma from his words, even if he owns a property in the מבוי, lav dafka, you could koif for him. If he doesn't live there, you can't be koif for him to participate in it. This is the kinds of things that, to compare it to what we discussed yesterday, those kinds of dinim of financial responsibilities, there are benefits for the people who are there living at the time, and not we'll call it a capital improvement that is a responsibility on the owners regardless, like a delis, either mitzad shmita or mitzad other reasons. Comes a chashayla, what happens if you have a mavoi which is wide 16 amas, which lechatchila we follow the Alter Rebbe, that the Alter Rebbe says it's better to be machmir, that you don't make that something which is wide 16 amas is considered a shus harabim, even though the halacha we paskin that 600,000 people is what makes it a shus harabim, whether it's in a city, whether it's in a street, whichever way you're going to get into it. Just go back to the shooting from last year and you'll get all the information. We're not going to go through it now. Could a person come and say, Kimli, like the Yesh Lahachmir? So Mela, not to be moiched, Alter Rebbe says you're not allowed to be moiched somebody who follows 600,000. But Kimli, I don't want to pay money for it. The Aruch HaShulchan brings it up in Seif Aleph of this Siman. The Aruch HaShulchan says, being the kvar nispashet ha-minhag, kvar nispashet ha-heter, al pi hachras Rabbeinu Aramo, that you follow the 600,000 and not the 16 amas, ein shum adam yechal lo yimar kimli, person cannot say kimli against the Ramah to avoid paying for this. But, a very interesting lashon, kvar nispashet ha-heter, which means, this applies if the only issue with this Mavoi is something which is globally accepted heter, the psak halacha, like the Ramah, that you follow 600,000 people, not 16 amas. If it creates, from this is mashma, that if they want to create an Eruv in the Mavoi, which is relying on other kulas which are not really nispashet heter, and for example, if you want to go according to the shitta of the Marit, regarding the drop from the sea, and stuff like that, that is not nispashet heter and fakert. So then, a person could say kimli. The only time he could say kimli is, the only time he cannot say kimli is saying kimli against the Ramah and nispashet heter. That's already acceptable across the board. Now just by the way, even if you pay for the lechi and the kaira, you could still be machmer on yourself and you don't have to carry there. It's a separate discussion. It's not mandatory that if you pay for it, you also have to enjoy it. Like we said about participating in certain things in the building, that something which you have the hana in front of you, it doesn't mean you don't have to have, not everything which is permitted you have to have. So now, if you have big wide doors that you could go in with your packages, the Mata Shimin says that you can't be me'akev. It's wide, comfortable doors. But if you look at the words of the Smeh, it's still a problem. Because the Smeh says you're going to have to put on, whether the doors are wide or not, as tall, big doors, still I can't just march through the doors with my packages. I still have to put them down, unlock the door, come in and be able to go into the Mavoi. Still going to be a problem. So the only solution will be if you have automatic doors. Right? You have automatic doors that when as you approach it opens up, or automatic gate, or whatever it is, then l'cha'ira, even according to the Smeh, you cannot be ma'akev them from putting doors. Now, how would this apply also to other things? If you have a mavoi which leads to a bunch of houses and chatzeros, and each one has a garage in the back of his house, and somebody wants to go and put up a gate in front of that mavoi, without going into the whole discussion of the gates that's later on in the Siman, blocking off a mavoi from Rosh Hashanah. I'm saying is not doing it. A person could say, I'm not interested in you doing it because now, when it's cold outside, I have to get out of my car, unlock it, raise it, drive my car in, get out of the car again, move it down, then drive to my house, do the same thing by my garage twice. So, I'm not interested in doing it. He has a tiny, he could do it. When cannot you do it? When there is no garages. Because then it goes into what we learned in Kuf Samach Aleph. If it's there to protect the cars from getting stolen, so it's not a din in Ikuv. For Shemitah, it's Tzedek Gadol. If one person cannot say, I don't want to get out of my car, and therefore I'm not ready to agree that you should have let's say cars are getting stolen from this area, I'm not ready to have you putting a gate there. He cannot block such a gate. If If you look, this is actually in the Shurim of the Shevet HaLevi, he seems like he implies that. The Mechaber, anyways, the Mechaber continues, even if Bnei Reshus HaRabim could also be ma'akev to put glosses on a Mavoi, and even if the Bnei HaMavoi would want to put the glosses a little bit inwards into the Mavoi, not right away by the entrance of the Mavoi, but a few feet in, they could still be ma'akev. Why is that? Why is it? Because sometimes when there's the Smeh says, when there's Zman HaShuk, people squeeze into there and it's going to create it's going to, now you're taking away from the Bnei Reshus HaRabim what they had Reshus to until now. The Ramah says that obviously Ramah adds on to what the Mechaber says over here, that if it's little Mevayos which are not open to Reshus HaRabim, but they're open to a Mavoi which is open to Reshus HaRabim, or they're open to a Simta, the Bnei HaMavoi could be ma'akev because you don't have this nekuda of the Bnei Reshus HaRabim pushing into it and going there. And this is something which is interesting. As Smeh points out, this is the difference between Bnei Mavoi and Bnei Reshus HaRabim. Bnei Mavoi could be ma'akev to put losses even in a Mavoi which opens another Mavoi, opens to a Simta. Bnei Reshus HaRabim can only be ma'akev a Mavoi which directly opens to a Reshus HaRabim. However, if the Mavoi already has Petzimim, already has beams there for putting a door, or the Smeh has, or if there's like partial wall or something like that, which shows that they already planned on blocking this, at that point you could already be mashlim and blocking it, because it shows that this was the original plan meikara. That's what Aruch HaShulchan understands it, that the plan meikara was that you're going to block the Bnei Reshus HaRabim from going through it. Now, what right do the Bnei Reshus HaRabim Bechlal have in this question that you're going to ask? What right do Bnei Reshus HaRabim have to say that we are not going to allow the Mavoi to be blocked when the Mavoi doesn't even belong to them? So the Erech Lechem says, simply, say, Meitzar Shechziku B'Rabim. Meitzar Shechziku B'Rabim. Also the Kakla, you're going to see this coming across a few times over there. And the Aruch HaShulchan also writes that. It says, Derech Shechziku B'Rabim, and you can't be mekalkalet. And therefore, the Aruch HaShulchan says, being that it's Meitzar Shechziku B'Rabim, this din of not blocking a Mavoi from the Reshus HaRabim applies whether it's a Mavoi Mefulish or to Reshus HaRabim from both sides or not. Even if it's not Mefulish, you can still block it, and you can still say that this section in the beginning of the Mavoi, where in Yom HaShuk, in the days of business, they push into it, is considered a Meitzar Shechziku B'Rabim. The Aruch HaShulchan adds a very interesting thing. He says, Bnei Beis Din has an obligation to do things that are beneficial for the crowd, for the community. If Bnei Reshus HaRabim are not going to be moiche about this door by the Mavoi, does the Beis Din have an obligation to go and volunteer a mecha on behalf of the people of Reshus HaRabim? The Aruch HaShulchan says no. One thing is, he says, these Bnei Reshus HaRabim never went and got permission from the Bnei HaMavoi to push into their Mavoi. Elamai, it so turned out to be, it's how Meitzar Shechziku B'Rabim. It's not fully, because a real Meitzar Shechziku B'Rabim needs to have Reshus in the people. This is a half of Chziku B'Rabim. It's partial Chziku B'Rabim. So therefore, one thing, enough that we gave the Bnei Reshus HaRabim the right to be moiche. And not only that, you already seen the Ramah that not only do they have the right to be moiche, even if they made an announcement and they weren't moiche right away, maybe they didn't know about it, they could still be moiche later. But to go now and make a new thing that the Beis Din has to volunteer mecha on behalf of the Bnei Reshus HaRabim, that's already too much, and that you're not going to do over there. There's a book from the Shlomo Kluger, who wrote many books, and one of them is called Mishpat Tzedek and Choshen Mishpat, and it's a beer on Choshen Mishpat. And on Seif Zayin over here, he brings, this is not on Seif Alf, but he brings it on Seif Zayin, but it's relevant to Seif Alf. He points out a few interesting nekudas that are relevant to this Seif. Number one, this whole din of pushing into a Mavoi is only if the Mavoi and the Reshus HaRabim are on the same level. Because then you could say, if there's pressure in the Rishus Harabim, people are going to move into the Mavoi. But if the Mavoi, you have to go up a step, or 1 or 2 steps into the Mavoi, or you have to go down two steps into the Mavoi. It's already not common that if there's Zman HaShuk, you're going to see people going into that Mavoi. It's already not as comfortable. That's already no longer the same din. Only if it's equal in height. Huh?
Back to the thing before, so Shulchan said that it's not necessarily if there's a source of Pesach, then the British are not going to not. Right? If there's any source of Pesach, you can put up a door.
If there's a Petzimim, yeah.
Why? Saying if they were saying the message doesn't make a difference.
No, because it shows that they already started to do the process of putting glosses over there from the original. So the Bnei Rishus Harabim were never able, whenever they went in, there was that under that understanding that this is only temporary. There's a door that's supposed to be here, it's just not here. The pilot's not here, but the door is supposed to be here. Another thing that the Mishpat Tzedek says is that today that there's din of the Malchusa and they own whatever they own, this whole din of Meitzah Shazikah Be'Rabban doesn't apply unless they make that determination. If they determine that this is a Meitzah that has a right for Rabbim, then yeah, otherwise not. And that is also pretty clear from the end of the Shulchan Aruch where it says about the Melech giving Rishus, which we're going to get to soon. Yeah, which is what the Ramah says towards the end, that if the king gives him Rishus to put losses in the Mavoi, then Mitzad Din of the Malchusa, they could do it. Why? Because the king owns the Shvakim and owns the streets and everything else. He can do whatever he wants. The Shevet HaLevi says the same thing applies to the government of the city, because they have a right on the public streets to do the same thing. So if this Mavoi is essentially a public property, and the city has a right to do it, they have a right to tell you to put glosses over there, and the Bnei Rishus Harabim cannot be moiche. The Pischei Tshuva over here says, however, this is only if the king or the kingdom voluntarily gave you permission to do it. But if they didn't, it's asur. I use the words asur for you to go and ask, because you know the Bnei Rishus Harabim are using it, and you're not going to want to do it because they're going to be moiche. You're going to go. It's asur for you to go and ask the king to supposedly give permission to put a door over there, because then what you're doing is you're being mekalkel a meitzah shechzika b'irabim. It's us, you're mekalkel a meitzah shechzika b'irabim.
That's legally allowed.
That legally allowed is it is already rishus. But if you have to get specific permits to put that up, then he says that you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to voluntarily go ahead and do it.
See, even the Chosa is that even now the Chosa is that whatever you own, you own.
What do you mean? The streets are not owned by you. Unless it's private streets. Otherwise, no. It's owned by the city. Question is, what's the exact definition of ownership? It's a whole different discussion, but they're in control of it. They're the ones who could close it or not close it. In Seif Beis, it says the same thing applies to mevoyos, which are open to the highway which leads to the other city. And then the Bnei HaMavoi want to block the access to the highway. Bnei Ha'ir could be ma'akiv them from blocking the access, even if they have another roadway. That's what the Mechaber says. The Smeh adds over here something interesting. This only applies if the roadway that you want to block is shorter than the roadway that already exists, than the other roadway, an alternative roadway. But if it's the same length, it's not a problem. And why is that? He tells you look in Prisha for the reason. You look in Prisha. He explained to you in Prisha that's based on Rashi. That it's based on Rashi that it's considered that it's considered a meitzah shechzika b'irabim. You can't be mekalkalit, etc. That's something else. That is going into traffic is a separate discussion, and you're soon going to see in the Aruch HaShulchan about. There's an interesting nekuda in the Aruch HaShulchan. We'll get to it in a minute. The Avnei Choshen says you can't bring a raya from Rashi to say that if the road is shorter, if both roads are equal distance to the other city, that you can block one. Why? He says, because the lashon of Rashi is kvar huchzeku lekatzer darkam. They're used to shortening their way. He says, if you're going to close off one of the roads, all the people that were living on that end of the Mavoi now have a longer road. Even if in miles, it's exactly the same 100 miles from north part of the Mavoi to the city, or from the south part of the Mavoi to the city. But the people now, they were huchzikul lekatzer haderech. Whoever was closer to the north entrance used the north road. Whoever was closer to the south entrance used the south road. So even if it's the same exact distance from the Mavoi to the next city, for the people in the Mavoi, it's not like that. For the people in the Mavoi, it's longer. So the Rashi, it says huchzikul lekatzer haderech, would also apply if it will be like that. And it's mashma from the Avnei Choshen that you could be ma'akev in any way, even if it's the other road is the same distance. The Avnei Choshen. The Avnei Choshen doesn't argue with Rashi. The Avnei Choshen argues with the Prish on how to understand Rashi. He says you cannot bring a raya from Rashi. By the way, the Aruch HaShulchan adds one word. When he says, "Im haderech hazu," when could you block it? He follows the smeh that certain roads you could block. He says, "Im haderech hazeh toiva oy ktsara v'ashniya yoser aruka." He says, if this road is better or shorter. It's not only if it's shorter in distance. If it's more comfortable to drive, you have a highway which might be shorter, but it takes you longer, it's more turns, and if you have a straight, comfortable highway which is a little bit more miles, you might take the comfortable one instead of the net.
Additional road will automatically make it shorter. Because the Waze will give you
more options, but this is before the days of Waze, when the donkeys didn't have GPS. Now, if it's longer or it's if it's a better road, he might do it. Now, Mispat, I don't know where he gets this from, but he understands. This is a new this generation people, that if you narrow it, it's not in the same isser. It's not in the same category of isser. It says because the Shulchan Aruch only says if you block it. But if you make the road narrower, if the people just say, you know what, we're not interested in having so many cars going through so many people going through our place, so we're going to narrow the road. He says that's not awesome. Because the Shulchan Aruch only says if least time. That's what he's medayik. But if you look from the words of the Aruch HaShulchan, he says toivo ktsara, because you could argue the other way.
Isn't the Makar of Max and one of them curious in the Gemara is about making the Rosh Hashanah goes wider into your property on the season?
Yeah, but it goes wider, but because people push into it. Over here we're talking about, it's not a Meitzah Shechziku B'Rabim, because it's for the Bnei Amovai. The Meitzah Shechziku B'Rabim has to be Chziku B'Rishus. The Aruch HaShulchan mentions it right here. He says you can't, if it's only Chziku B'Rishus. And he brings it from the Gemara. He says, B'Payah. Yeah. He says it's a partial. The Aruch HaShulchan takes it like a half Meitzah Shechziku B'Rabim, not fully. Okay, I'm going to skip Sif Gimel and Dal, and I'm going to be able to get to it. I don't have enough time. We're going to go to two topics which are in the end of the Siman and Sif Zayin in the Ramah. Shul Halachas, which we mentioned. The Beis Yosef brings it earlier, and we said when we mentioned it, B'Shaitei, we said we're going to get to it now about the seats in the shul and about opening up shuls, which I mentioned then. I'm going to mention it again. I don't know if I'm going to have time to mention it, but about the seats in the shul. And a very interesting Tzemach Tzedek about how to chazakas and seats in shuls. The Ramah says that if a rich person is discussing about Marbei Lo Yaderech, I'm mamish jumping to the end of the Siman because of lack of time, but maybe I'll get to the Sifim Gimel Daled later if I have time. Anyways, you have a shul which has seats, and the rich person owns, let's say this shul has 100 seats, and there's 50 on the right side and 50 on the left side. And they're comfortable seats. and the rich person owns 10 seats for his whole family. And the people of the shul want to add more benches. There's a wide, or some people want to put chairs in the middle of the wide hall, of the wide pathway. So the rich person who owns the seats could say, you are making my pathway narrower, because let's say if there's a wide walkway to the front, and now you're going to add an extra chair or two on to each row, the pathway becomes narrower, it takes longer to walk through it. Or, by you adding benches, have to go around those benches, because now there used to be a nice two aisles in the middle to walk by. Now there's only one aisle, so I have to go around further to get to my chairs. You could be ma'akev. Unless there's a minhag in the city, at that point you follow the minhag. That's what the Rama says. The Nesivis over here adds that this is only if the shul was already built like this, and now the shul wants to add more seats. But if the shul burnt down, and now they're rebuilding the shul, the Gabayim, the Zayin Tuvi, the people who own the shul, could add more benches, could add more rows, could do whatever they want when they rebuild the shuls, especially if they're doing it to be able to sell more seats, so they should be able to have more money to build the shul. And if the people who used to own the seats want to be ma'akev, tough luck. He says, you go, Shuma, you calculate how much the value of their seats was before. Now, bechurbanam, how much the value of their location is. Tell them, here's your money for your seat, and go get lost. And goodbye. And they don't get the seat anymore. The Mishpat Tzedek, like I mentioned, of Rav Kluger, he disagrees on it and says, no, if they build from new, they keep their chazakah, they keep their seats come right back to where they were, and all the chazakas remain intact. And there's a Magen Avram, it's mashma the same way. But it doesn't discuss if they can add more seats in it. It says they maintain their chazakas. Somewhat of a machlokes. The Beis Yitzchak says that it depends on how they originally built the shul. If originally the shul was built with the money that they sold seats, so each person owns the seat, in which case, even if the shul gets destroyed, each person retains the rights for the future. But if the shul was built with whatever, the certain gvirim gave money, and then they sold seats in the shul, so then if once it gets destroyed, the people who will rebuild the shul, since that money was not used for it, the people who have seats do not retain their chazakas. A very interesting truth in the Tzemach Tzedek and Chaim, סימן Chav Beis, where he mentions the Nesivis. He does not mention any other disagreeing opinion to it. It happens to be that the Beis Yitzchak and the B'Shem Kluger are after the Tzemach Tzedek. What I'm saying is, Poyel, he doesn't mention any disagreement to it. And the Kshaila was over there that the shul didn't burn down, the shul didn't get destroyed. There was a shul in town, and the shul got too small. And now they decided they're building a bigger shul. How was the shul before? The shul before was that next to the Aron Kodesh, there was 4 seats on each side. Now they're building a much wider shul, and on each side of the Aron Kodesh you have 10 seats. And it became a big machlokes. The people who had the 4 on each side before, they come and say, when you rebuild a shul, we want the 4 closer to the Aron Kodesh. And they are not paying Mizrach prices because they're grandfathered in. They're paying the regular fee that everybody in the city is paying for rebuilding the shul. But the shul now is adding 6 more seats on each side, and they're selling those seats for a premium. Those people are coming and saying, chutzpah, we're paying much more than you for it. At least we should get the 2 closest ones to the Aron Kodesh. So we'll make a pshara. There used to be 4 on each side. So we're going to split the 2 closest to the Aron Kodesh on each side. They're going to go to the new guys. 2 a little bit further out are going to go to the old guys. And then we're going to split the rest. But you can't hog all the 4 that are close to Aron Kodesh on both sides.
And they're paying the same price as everyone.
Who? The new guys?
The old guys.
The old guys are paying the same price as everybody in the back. Oh, in the cheap seats, the $20 seats, not the VIP seats. So Tzemach begins by saying there's two sfeikas over here. Number one, first shaila that has to be discussed over here is, just because you're closer in Kodesh from before, who says that you retain the rights to your seat now also? Being that you build a new building with extra expenses, even if you acquired something in the past, all you acquired was the karka and not the seat in the shul. And the fact is you're not paying more. So you want to take your karka back? No problem, we'll give you the karka. If there's not going to be a new shul built, you're not going to have anything. So take your karka and take it and go.
Wait, they're building a new shul in the same place the old one? Or
Yeah, in the same place as the old one. And he says, and the second shaila is that it's mashma from the Rosh, and the Ramah brings it in Kuf Ayin Aleph, that it's a problem to change somebody's seat in an existing shul, to somebody to change seats. So the question is, what do we do? Do we say that the seats remain and therefore you get and you can't change them like the Rosh later on, or do we say that what you acquired a land, but the seat in the shul is not like that, and you don't retain the same seat?
If they're building it in the same spot, in the same place, then wouldn't the land be next to the Kodesh?
No, but who says they're in Kodesh in exactly the same place? We don't know what's going to be exactly. So Tzemach Tzedek says, regarding the first question, do you retain seats when you rebuild a shul or not? He says, the only place where it's really clearly written is in the Nesivis, in the Siman, in Kuf Samach Beis, the Nesivis that we mentioned. And according to that the Nesivis says that you do a calculation and the person could take his money back, it's mashma from the Nesivis. So what would be the din in this case? Calculate how much they paid originally. Let's say they paid $2,000 for the seat originally. And now we're selling those seats for $10,000. There's an $8,000 difference for the seats. Let them pay the $8,000 difference and they can keep it. And if they don't pay the $8,000, and then if they don't pay the $8,000, they lose.
Okay, the student says that you have to pay them the original. You have to give them a refund. Right?
A refund, yes. The Tzemach Tzedek uses that, the flip side. He says, being that the Nesiva says that you give them a refund, that means that what are these guys entitled to? Only a refund. So let them pay the difference from the refund that they would have gotten to the price that they're charging now. And then they could keep the seat.
The shul wants to pay them, let's say they paid $10,000.
They didn't pay 10, they paid 2. The old guys paid $2,000. The new guys are paying 10.
Every year they pay $10,000.
No, let's say they paid every year they pay for services. I think to buy the seat the first time it costs more. And regarding the second suffix, whether you have a right to the seat or not, the Tzemach Tzedek says, I have a different question. He says, how do you know that the mila of the seats is based on how close it is to Aron Kodesh? Maybe it's how close it is to the corner. From Mizrach you have Darim on one side, you have Tzafin on one side, and you have Darim on the other side. The Gemara says, Aroitze lehach kim yadrim, Aroitze lehasher yadspin. So maybe the chazakas are the 4 people you count from the corner, not from the Aron Kodesh. They're arguing close to Aron Kodesh. It's not so. Maybe it should be from the other end. So therefore, Tzemach Tzedek says, "B'poil, not exactly sure how to deal with this. Therefore, make a pshara. What's the kind of pshara? If the person asks the person what he wants, the person wants to move, wants to keep. Let's say the person had the 3rd seat from the Aron Kodesh, or the 2nd seat from the corner, and that's the seat he wants. 3rd seat from the Aron Kodesh. To get it for free, you can't, because you have the Nesivis. To pay full price, you can't, because you have the Rosh, you keep the seats, that you can't change somebody's seat. Therefore, half. So take the difference between the price, let's say that we said before it's $2,000 to $10,000, the difference is $8,000, let him pay $4,000 and get the seat. If he doesn't pay, he loses out. But that only works for seats 3 to 10 on each side. 1 and 2, which are next to Eden Kodesh, has a third problem. And the third problem is that that's the ones that they're fighting about with the other crowd. So on that he says they shouldn't pay just 50%, but a little bit more than 50% of the difference. And then they could retain those seats. Then you could retain those seats. The Tzemach Tzedek seems like he pretty much paskins like the Nesivis. Essentially brings only the Nesivis. When it comes to this Nekuda, he does bring the Rosh also, but he doesn't bring anybody else who is sworn to disagree with the Nesivis regarding the value going. He just makes a pshat about changing the location of the seats. He's not to me it looks like he's not more than the Nesivis.
He passes slack in the middle and he says they're up.
No, he's passing smack in the middle, not because between the Nesivis and the Rosh. Because Ba'atzim he passes, they do retain the seats up front. It's not like everything gets resettled. And the Nesivis doesn't say that that they have to pay the difference. The Tzemach Tzedek took it from the Nesivis. The Ramah continues that if the other people want to build a new shul because there's no place, or Yechidim, and I mentioned this in the past, Yechidim want to build another shul, nobody else can be Moiche against them. However, Moiche is Royal Nazife. It comes from the Rivosh. Why? Because building a shul is a mitzvah g'dela. This, the mitzvah g'dela, big mitzvah. The Rivosh says that. This Rivosh is also brought in the Magen Avraham in Erechaim סימן Kuf Nun Dalet towards the end. And over there he points out that yes, the Ra'am disagrees on the Magen Avraham, and the Ra'am says that you could that you could be ma'akev, and the Mishpat Shmuel also says you could be ma'akev, that if the old shul has enough space to hold them, they cannot separate from the new shul. But the Magen Avraham is not machriya. If you look at the Ra'am, for when you read the Ra'am, it seems like at any time that there's place in the shul, you can't make a new shul. But if you look in the Ra'am himself, it's not so. Because the Ra'am is talking about that they split because they want to make a machlekes. And then it's asr. But the Ra'am clearly says it's machmas she'ena bais mechila, if there's no space in the shul. Or machmas sibos achele she'ena machmas chiluk ideis, or another reason, it's not because of machlekes. Shebeneim, hina reshus biyodim, they're allowed to. And the Knesset Agdela passes like that. In Siman Kuf Nun, that's what the Knesset Agdela brings this, and is medayik specifically this from the Ra'am, that only if there's machlekes, that's when the Ra'am is Eisah, but in any other case, not so.
You could always claim it. When you have machlekes, you always claim, you also need it.
The Mishnah Berurah brings the Radbaz, and the Radbaz takes a totally opposite approach. Like the Rivosh, and mamash against the Ra'am. He says, if people are not getting along in shul, ain't tfilas ma'aleyafa. So for sure they should make a new shul. If you're not comfortable in shul, you're supposed to daven in a place that you could be mechaven. If you're irked in shul the whole time, you're not going to be mechaven, make a new shul. Makim shali b'chafetz is not only in limud HaTorah, it's also in the tefillah. That's the lashon of the Radbaz. And bichlal, to prevent machlekes, it's better to split and make a new shul. So mamish, the opposite of the Ra'am. And the Beis Shloimeh, Beis Shloimeh, Erechaim סימן Chavav brings this la'alach. The Marash Dam also passes like this in Erechaim Chelik Alav סימן Lamed Vav. The Shiurei Shevet Halevi on these simanim comes a whole new deal. He says, Sai the Ra'am. He says, forget about the machlekes Ra'am Rivosh. The Ra'am is only talking about in a city which has only one shul. In those days, each city had one shul. Today, that every city has a bunch of shuls and different nuschos, for sure you could open more shuls. It's bechlal not even a shayla. There is an interesting letter from the Rebbe. You get a Skedish Chelik Yud, you get us Gimel Reish Nun Daled. To answer about his Yazdus Bati Knesses Chabad B'Yerushalayim. And the Rebbe says it's protei, there's the protim, it's totally b'tnai amokim, etc. Therefore, he can't give a specific decision. The Kudas Klolius. The Rebbe starts like this: Bichlal, kol amar b'bati knesiyos ka'elu, arei ze meshubach. Keivan sherichu kamokim lif'amim meineya mikama ma'anash lispal b'sakan senus Chabad. if you have to walk further, people are not going to come to shul. That's a Chabad. So therefore, more shuls is merrier. Even more so that if you have the shul is further away and it's not so close to walk, forget about the anash not coming because richok hamokim, even to be mekad of people. Now if the closest Chabad shul is a half-hour walk, you're not going to schlep somebody to walk unless you expect them to drive, which is a different issur. L'idach gisa, he says, at the same time, it's move on that one shul should not do competition with another shul. Because even though kina seifrim tar bechachma, אבל אין צורך ליאס באופן שילחמו על מספר פלוני, או פלוני זה מוישך לכאן וזה מוישך לכאן. No, it shouldn't be in a way that you drag mispalim from one shul to another. So, it seems like the Rebbe is a little bit taking the Ram's approach. Mostly the Rivash, sure it's better to have shuls, distance, everything else. But if you're going to create a situation where you're going to take people away from it, even though it's not mamish Ram, it's really mamish, it's maybe a little bit of a din of asagas gvul, that you're taking people away from there. That's essentially, practically, don't go and grab other people. It's not the halacha. La halacha, it's clear that Rebbe starts with the first thing is open as many shuls as possible, especially for because of distance. Especially, you're not going to be able to bring more people. Today, when distance is not only physical distance, it's also bepoil. Certain people are attracted to different kinds of shuls. So the more, the merrier. And that is the Ramah doesn't mention the Ram. The Ramah only mentions the Rivash. That anybody who blocks the shul is royal in the zivah. Everybody's going to tell you that the reason you're not allowed is because of tshuva from the Moshe. Tshuva from the Moshe, not to open the shul. Tshuva from the Moshe was talking about in the same block, and the Moshe later passed and you could open if it's more than one block away is not a problem. And on the same tshuva that the Moshe wrote, which was a psak din, 6 months later there was a letter that he signed that he retracts it because he found out that it's not having any serious effect on the other one. And with that, we conclude Shir and Siman Kuf Samach Beis, and I guess Sifim Gimel Dal will have to wait till the next cycle.